What's up, guys? Mike Olson and Justin Moody with the Moody Olson team here, bringing you the second in our Vegas versus series. And today, got a very exciting one for you. We are doing Las Vegas versus Seattle, Washington. Going from the Southwest to the Pacific Northwest, another part of the country that I absolutely adore, that I enjoy going to visit as often as I can. So we're very excited to bring you guys this comparison today. Let's go ahead and get right into it. As you know from last time, we told you that we're gonna go ahead and compare all the cities that we do in this series. We're gonna use the same metrics to compare them because we want it to be even. We wanna make you guys informed buyers. And just as a recap of what those metrics are, we're gonna talk to you about the housing market. We're gonna talk to you about the job market. We're going to talk about the cost of living and how they compare to each other. We're going to talk about crime rates, dining and entertainment nightlife. And finally, we're going to wrap it up talking about outdoor living and the sorts of things you can do if you enjoy spending your time outdoors. Let's get into it. Justin's going to kick us off talking about the housing market. Let's go.
And before we jump into the housing market, as Mike lays out our criteria and what we're talking about, if we're missing something or you'd like us to add something, comment down below so that the next series that we do, we can try and get that in there for you.
Absolutely.
So let me talk about the housing market. I was, obviously I got online, looked at Realtor.com, Zillow, NerdWallet, a couple of different sites to kind of get a feel for the Seattle housing market, since you and I really don't know a whole lot about it.
I know it's expensive.
It is expensive. The average home price in Seattle is higher than the national average substantially, a little bit more than 40% higher than the national average. A 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in Seattle proper, not the county, but like actual Seattle, is gonna run you about $850,000, which was surprising. Now, there's always going to be outliers in that. You know, that could include homes that are overlooking the ocean or sitting in the hills, or just locations that are amazing. But just like Vegas prices, we have outliers as well.
Sure. And I mean, when you talk about the median, right? So you talk about the median, that's going to bring all those outliers in. Not only are you going to talk about the outliers on the high side, you're also going to talk about the outliers on the low side. That's why we use those numbers, because they do a pretty good job of accounting for those outliers and really telling you, how far is your dollar going to go when you talk about on a square foot basis, or we talk about a per bedroom basis.
And I tried to keep it all in line as far as what we see as popular. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, with between 1,800 and 2,100 square feet. Pretty much the average home that Mike and I see people looking for here in Las Vegas. So I tried to keep it there. What also surprised me was how tight the housing market is in Seattle. Mike and I have experienced that in Vegas at times. The market here is definitely improving, but the housing market in Seattle is very tight. You have a lot of people who just don't want to sell their homes. New construction is pretty slow actually in Seattle, partly due to the weather, I think. You can't build a new home when it's raining, and it rains a lot there. But also there's just not the demand.
Well, I would go, and I want to be careful here, because this is me more talking off the cuff. This isn't necessarily a researched answer, but I've spent quite a bit of time in Seattle. I've traveled there for work on multiple occasions back in my old defense contractor days. And I've also traveled there for just for fun, for vacation. And there's a big difference when you talk about a city like Seattle. For one thing, there's not a lot of room, right? Seattle is up against the water, so obviously you can't expand to the west. And it's surrounded by mountains. So there's not a lot of room for expansion in that area, so it's already quite built up.
Which is why I'm glad you brought that up. So I started looking out a little bit farther into the county. I believe it's called Willamette County.
Yes, I believe so.
So I started looking a little bit farther out, a little bit farther drive times, 45 minutes to an hour, some hour and 10-minute drive times into downtown Seattle area, expecting the prices to just drop drastically.
And they didn't?
Surprisingly not. You were still well above the national average, in about the $650,000 range.
I would also venture to say that I'm sure the regulatory environment there makes building new construction a bit more difficult. It's not as friendly a state from a regulatory standpoint as Nevada is. And then again, we're in the desert. So even though we are surrounded by mountains, if you're familiar with the Las Vegas Valley, there is still room for expansion in quite a few different directions.
Yes.
Whereas Seattle doesn't necessarily have that. So I can see how that would be a factor affecting the pricing of the houses there.
Yeah, and I really tried to look at the homes, and it is. I mean, Seattle. I mean, you've been there several times, and so have I. It's a completely different style of home. Here, you're going to have more stucco and brick. In Seattle, you're seeing a lot more wood homes, panel-sided homes. And again, what's becoming popular in Las Vegas is already popular there, is high-rise living. So the market is unique in Seattle, but I was really surprised at how high it was. There were some beautiful homes though, and the farther out you got into more farm or ranch-style homes on a little bit bigger lots, and they were beautiful, just like the ones that we have here. So comparing the markets, you're definitely going to get more bang for your buck in Las Vegas, meaning you're going to get a substantially larger home, even a substantially larger lot size if you want a little bit of space for a significantly lower amount.
Right on.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and segue over to talking about the cost of living writ large. So we're going to go ahead and bring some of the other day-to-day cost of living factors into the discussion. And Seattle is just going to be significantly higher. You guys can't see it on screen here, but just below me I have my laptop. And if you'll bear with me, I'm going to refer to some of these notes because I want to make sure and give you guys the best information here. So as always, I am using the NerdWallet cost of living comparison calculator. And as always, I started by putting in Las Vegas and started with roughly the median household income of Las Vegas, which is $66,500, depending on the source you check, plus or minus a couple $1,000s, but that's a good starting point. And in order to maintain that standard of living in the city of Seattle, you need to make just over $98,000. So it's 48% higher cost of living in Seattle versus Las Vegas. Now, that does factor in cost of living regarding housing. So we already talked about that individually, but we're gonna go ahead and talk about some of the other cost of living factors. By the way, for the record, according to NerdWallet, 103% higher housing cost for Seattle versus versus Las Vegas. So it's substantial. And I mean, without even talking about the cost of purchasing a home, even rent. Median 2-bedroom apartment in Seattle rents for $3,358 as opposed to $1,627 in Las Vegas. And I would think that $1,600 for a 2-bedroom apartment was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So to more than double that for an apartment in Seattle is just a shocking number to me, but I understand. I mean, it's a very in-demand city, limited supply. I understand supply and demand as well as anybody. But let's look at some of these other factors. Transportation cost, 15% higher in Seattle. You're looking at about $1 a gallon more for gas in Seattle than in Las Vegas. Food costs are 10% higher in Seattle versus Las Vegas. Entertainment cost, this is the one that kind of blew me away here. Entertainment cost is 43% higher in Seattle. So that includes things like buying movie tickets, going to classes like yoga classes, entertainment. It says here a 6-pack of Heineken beer will cost you $1 more than it will in Las Vegas.
Wow.
So yeah, entertainment costs 43% higher. Healthcare costs are 60% higher, which is absolutely crazy to me.
That shocks me, wow.
Right, so it's a very expensive city to live in. And you know, when it comes to these cost of living comparisons, now I know the next city in the hopper is gonna be Phoenix, and that's gonna be a lot more comparable to Las Vegas. But man, these West Coast cities, San Diego, which we did last week, Seattle, which we're doing this week, and you know, when we get into the Bay Area and Los Angeles, you guys are gonna see, when you start comparing these West Coast coastal cities to Las Vegas, man, we're just gonna come out ahead every single time when it comes to the cost of living, because it's just gotten so crazy expensive to live out here on the West Coast now. I mean, people here in Las Vegas complain about the cost of living, and you can see how much better we have it than some of these other cities.
Yep.
We're 2 bullet points down now, and so far Las Vegas is pretty strongly ahead.
We're doing okay.
We're doing okay.
This shouldn't be surprising or shocking to most people. You know, most people know that living, you know, on either one of the coasts, if you're on the water or very close to it, the prices are going to be much higher than if you come in a little bit farther away. Kind of talking about your point of cost of living.
Speaking of cost of living, let's talk about how you afford to pay those expenses. We're gonna segue back over to Justin, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the relative housing markets.
All right, and we've kind of been leading off with Seattle and everything, and I'm gonna lead off with Las Vegas here. First thing you think of when you think of Las Vegas is casinos, right? I don't wanna work in a casino, I don't wanna work in a hotel. Well, you know what those are dominant industries. The tourism industry, guest service industry, we call them service workers. They're amazing out here, and they can make really good money. But Las Vegas has a burgeoning tech scene. We have a lot of tech companies moving to Nevada, And Las Vegas specifically, because we are so business friendly, it's so much easier to start a new business or to grow a business here because of the tax rates and the friendliness and lack of regulation that you had talked about. So we do have a burgeoning tech scene. We have a lot of large tech companies moving out here. Amazon has bought tons of space. Google has space out here. Mike's talked in the past on other videos about Switch. So you're starting to see a lot more these tech companies come out. We have a battery factory coming out here. We have different companies that work on the tech for industrial vehicles and warehouses. Because we have so many warehouses here, you're starting to see companies moving here that are building and working on the tech that make those operate. So the tech scene is really, really exploding out here. Another area of opportunity out here that is really starting to see a big change is healthcare. You're starting to see more and more healthcare focused employment here. We have several different types of medical schools, nursing schools, dental schools here. UNLV is starting to become a really dominant force in the nursing school industry. I know that they've talked about building a medical school somewhere near the downtown area, which would be fantastic. Now, Seattle, when you think about Seattle work, what do you think?
When I think about Seattle work, I think white collar, I think, Microsoft, I think Nike, I think
Amazon.
These big, Amazon, Starbucks, right? Now I understand that those are simply big names, but generally speaking, I think of Seattle as a tech town.
Yes, you mentioned that the top employers out there, Amazon, Nike, Starbucks, those tech companies, and well, Starbucks isn't a tech company, Starbucks makes delicious coffee, but you have these companies that they're the major employers.
I'm more of a Dutch Bros guy myself.
Okay, I see your Dutch Bros cup over there. Now the job market here in Vegas, I've said this since the day I moved here 14 years ago. If you can't find a good job in Vegas, you're not looking. You don't want to work. Now Seattle, the job market was booming post-COVID. 2022, 2023, according to, this is from US News and World Reports, Amazon, Microsoft, Zillow, companies like that are the top employers. The job market there has tightened since about late 2023 through 2024. The unemployment rates are great. They're very on par with the national average. They're a little bit lower actually, about the same as Las Vegas, but it is taking longer for employees to find work out there. The average time or duration it takes to find work out there is about 90 days versus Las Vegas, which is about 18. So while there are great high paying jobs in Seattle, the market has definitely slowed down. Versus Las Vegas, where the job market is just exploding right now, and we're only expecting it to get better and better. The same source, World News and Reports, expects Las Vegas to have 63% job growth over the next 24 months. 63%.
That's fantastic. And we're going to keep bringing this up in these videos because it's relevant, and we're not going to just assume that because you're watching this video that you've seen, say, the San Diego video or 5 videos from now that you've seen any of the other Versus videos. So some of the important things to bring up when you're talking about the job market in Las Vegas is the growth and the new businesses and industries that are moving here, the huge expansion by companies like Amazon, where they're building new warehousing, where they're building new distribution facilities. There are new manufacturing facilities, particularly down in Henderson area. Lots of new manufacturing going in down there. We talked about it a little bit in our East Henderson video. And then again, we don't know exactly what the timeline is, or at least I don't, but there's this entire effort to bring part of the Hollywood studio system here to Las Vegas and to get out of that regulatory environment that exists in Southern California.
And those are very high paying jobs.
They are very high paying jobs. And so that's going to relocate a lot of those high paying jobs from Southern California to Las Vegas. So not only do we compare very favorably from a job market standpoint today, but the situation is only improving. And just like I talked about in the San Diego video, the economy in Seattle is a lot more mature as far as the job market. I don't believe that there's necessarily as much room for rapid expansion in that economy as there is in the Las Vegas economy, which is really going through a bit of a revolution right now, and it's making a transition from being an economy that is really heavily dependent on the tourism sector to expanding outside of that sector and having a market that is independent of just the strip and the casinos. And that is a great thing. More diversification in our job market means more jobs for more different types of people with different experience and different training. More ways for you to earn a living and support your family is nothing but a good thing in my opinion. So
I agree.
There's a lot of upside in Las Vegas. And again, these videos are not intended to be negative. They're not intended to bash the cities that we are comparing to Las Vegas. Just like I told you in the San Diego video, I love Seattle. I enjoy visiting there very much. I've had a great time every single time that I've been there. I have nothing bad to say about Seattle. The intent of this video is not to say one city is better than the other city. The intent of this video is to give you the information and let you make your own decision. So obviously we're biased towards Las Vegas because we live here, we work here, and we want you to let us help you buy a house. However,
and understand, neither Mike and I are not Vegas locals. We're not born and raised here. We chose to move here.
we did. Yes.
And then we chose to stay. Let me ask you, in your cost of living, did you talk about the average salary in Seattle versus Las Vegas?
So I've got those numbers right here.
Mike already talked about the cost of living difference. So if we could talk about the average salary in Seattle versus the cost of living in Seattle, and then the average salary in Las Vegas versus the cost of living in Las Vegas. If you don't have it, I have it.
No, I got those numbers right here.
Okay.
So the median household income is $61,400 for Las Vegas. And in Seattle, the household income is $105,391. So it is substantially higher. However, just like we talked about in our previous video, if you're a blue collar worker or if you work in the service industry, which is a huge percentage of the population, those salaries don't necessarily scale. So while if you are a tech worker or if you're in some kind of a highly skilled labor type position, then maybe yes, you could say, oh, I can move from Las Vegas to Seattle and the increase in my pay would be enough to offset the increase in the cost of living. But if you work in the service industry, if you work in possibly a lower skilled job, or if you work in something that does not have the ability for your salary to scale like that, you're most definitely going to be better in Las Vegas, where the cost of living is much more reachable. Because if you make, let's face it, if you make $25 an hour here, the chances that you're going to move to Seattle and immediately start making $50 an hour are pretty slim.
Yes.
Now, if you make $75,000 a year here, and the chances of you moving to Seattle and making $150,000 a year, probably a bit higher, right? Because if you're in that strata of the employment sector, your job might scale like that. But if you're not up there in those high skill, white collar type positions, the lower cost of living is going to benefit you in Las Vegas.
And again, these numbers are also pre-tax. Mike and I have said it before, we'll say it again, Nevada does not have a state income tax. Unfortunately, we still have the federal income tax, but that's pretty much across the board, every state. With the lack of state income tax in Nevada, your take home is a lot more. So you may have a 20 or 30% difference in salary versus Seattle versus Nevada, depending on what type of job you are, like Mike said, or what you're doing. But if you offset the cost of living, if you offset the taxes that you're paying, not only in income tax, but sales tax, property tax, insurance rates, everything like that, it tends to balance out. And a lot of times, depending on that financial situation you're in, with living in Nevada and Las Vegas in particular, you can come out ahead.
Absolutely. All right, so there's no great way to segue to the next subject. We need to work on that for future videos, but let's go ahead and jump right on over and talk about crime statistics. Now, like we told you guys before, we are here not to sugarcoat anything, but to give you guys real honest information, allow you to make the decision that's best for you and your family. So we're not going to sugarcoat the information. We're not going to whitewash anything to try to make Las Vegas look better than it is or look better than another city. We're just going to give you raw data, make a good decision for you, make a good decision for your family. And so with that being said, I just want to get right into it. I am using the US News crime rate statistics for both of these cities, and so it's a direct comparison. And the US News, they use a crime index that is a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. And for the city of Las Vegas, we are rated as an 8 on their 1 to 10 scale. while Seattle is rated as a 7. So we edge them out just slightly.
Pretty close.
It is very, very close. It's actually a 7.3 versus an 8.0, in case you guys want to check those numbers yourselves. And when it comes to violent crime, so those numbers are split into violent crime and property crime. And when it comes to violent crime, Las Vegas has a violent crime rate of 410 crimes per 100,000 people, which is slightly higher than the national average. Whereas Seattle has a violent crime rate of 322 per 100,000 people, which is slightly lower than the national average. So when it comes to violent crime, pretty comparable statistics. Seattle does have a slight edge. Credit where credit's due. However, where we beat them pretty substantially is in property crime. So Las Vegas has a property crime rate. So this is going to be things like, car theft, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Las Vegas has a property crime rate of 1,700 per 100,000 people, which is lower than the national average. While Seattle has a property crime rate higher than the national average by a substantial margin at 2,860. So over 1,000 more per 100,000, which is obviously a large number. So that is where we beat them. That is why our overall statistic is better than theirs. However, that being said, I feel that both cities are
comparably safe.
They are comparably safe, and I would not have any issue living. Obviously, I live in Las Vegas. I wouldn't have any issue living in Seattle, at least not because of crime. Yeah. I wouldn't have any issue. The taxation and traffic might influence me differently.
The weather maybe a little bit too.
Oh, and the weather, yeah. We'll talk about that when we get to the outdoor. We get to the outdoor section. However, from a crime rate standpoint, both cities are very safe. Both cities are safer than the national average across the board. And I don't think that it's really a major factor in your decision, but we want to present you guys with all the information.
All right, so now that we've established that both Seattle and Las Vegas are relatively safe places to live, let's talk about, are they safe places to play, or more in tune, are they fun places to play? Obviously, we know Vegas is a fun place to play, depending on what you're into. But Seattle has its own vibe and its own scene. I know when Mike and I were growing up, Seattle was known for grunge, and flannel. And as I was doing my research on what the entertainment scene is like there, it's definitely based around breweries. Lots of beer drink in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've had your share.
I have had my share. So you guys know this. I'm a big microbrew guy. I'm a big craft beer guy. It's one of the things I really enjoy. It was one of the things that really surprised me when I moved here to Las Vegas, because coming from Colorado, Colorado's the craft beer capital of America, more breweries per capita in Colorado than any other state. So I was very spoiled there, and I actually thought that I was going to be missing out when I moved here to Las Vegas. Not at all the case. We'll talk about that in a second. Las Vegas has a great brew scene. However, Seattle also has a great brewery scene. Lots and lots of local beer there. Really, really high quality craft beer in Seattle. Just like their coffee, they take a lot of pride in it. They make really good stuff, and they should take pride in it because it's quality. So if that's what you're looking for, I could tell you that you'd be safe in either city. I've told you guys about this before. The brewery scene here in Las Vegas is fantastic, with breweries like Craft House and Able Baker and Love Lady, and there's more of them. Big Dogs, which is a local brew pub just around the corner from my house here, and the Las Vegas Brewing Company, which is another local brewery just a couple miles from here. We have a great brew scene. Seattle has an equally great craft beer scene. So you really can't go wrong if that's what you're looking for. I tell you, they do have us pretty well beat when it comes to coffee, but we can't make everything here.
What surprised me was, maybe it didn't surprise me, but maybe I just forgot, was not only with the craft brew scene, live music is such a big part of Seattle.
Seattle's a huge live music town.
Huge live. And of course you're going to get the big name concerts that come through, not like Vegas, because everybody comes through Vegas. But it seemed like every place that I looked at, every brewery, every pub, just every venue that they had, is live music almost 7 nights a week.
Yes.
Which is a really important thing in the Seattle area. And I don't want to touch too much on Mike's next topic too, but the entertainment also revolves around the ocean and Puget Sound really, and things that you can do on the water there that you not necessarily can do here in Las Vegas. So the entertainment, it's really going to be based, and I think all of our videos are going to be a lot like this. What do you like to do? There are going to be similarities. So if you're like Mike and you're a big craft beer person, Seattle and Las Vegas are going to be very comparable. If you're a live music person, Seattle might have a little bit of edge as far as like the small venue, but Las Vegas does have some great bars and restaurants that do a lot of live music too. So I would say that's pretty much a wash when it comes to big ticket events, concerts, shows, plays, things of that nature. That I think definitely Las Vegas is going to have the edge, just because we're a city of entertainment.
Listen, when it comes to spectacle, nobody's going to beat Las Vegas.
Yes.
Pure and simple, bottom line, if it comes to big, bombastic, spectacle entertainment, we're going to beat them all. We're going to tell you guys this in every single video. Las Vegas and the Strip and the big concerts and the big DJs and the residencies and the big shows and Cirque du Soleil and David Copperfield. You just can't beat Las Vegas when it comes to bombast, right? When it comes to spectacle. But Seattle has a phenomenal music scene. They have a phenomenal culture. Seattle is one of those cities that really does have its own culture, right? And I've experienced that. I've been there, I've seen it, and it's fantastic. They have so many great musicians that come up in that area. I mean, listen, any city that gives birth to an entire genre of music is something worth talking about, right? And Seattle has given birth to an entire genre of music in grunge, as everybody knows, right? But the point is that in order for something like that to happen, you have to have a community of passionate people making art, and Seattle has that in spades. So when it comes to big spectacle, Las Vegas 100% of the way. When it comes to a small culture of artists that are making great art, man, I got to give Seattle credit where credit's due. It is a great town for that. And it just depends on what you're looking for. Again, these videos aren't about one city being better than the other. These videos are about what does Las Vegas have to offer and what does this other city have to offer, and which one of those things is a better fit for you and for your family and for your way of life.
And speaking of better fit, comment down below. What do you like to do? What are some of the things that you enjoy? We'd love to see your comments so that we can maybe address those in future videos. So let us know. What do you enjoy? What are you looking for out of your nightlife and entertainment in the city or town that you're looking to move to?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mentioned the outdoor life in Seattle briefly, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a nightlife guy. But when I go to Seattle, my existence in Seattle is revolving around Puget Sound.
Sure.
So can you talk about the outdoor life there in Seattle?
Yeah, so outdoor life in Seattle really revolves around either the oceans or the mountains, right? So you have the Puget Sound, right? So you have tons of fishing, tons of kayaking, stand-up paddle boarding. That Pacific Northwest flavor of the oceanic life is really present in Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're somebody who wants to spend your days, kayaking on the Sound, listen, Seattle's your place. Absolutely, 100%, no question. If you're more into winter sports, Seattle is going to beat Las Vegas every day of the week, right? You have mountains, you have skiing, you have mountain hiking. There's just a lot going on in Seattle if you're into the outdoor life, assuming, and this is a big if, you can live with the weather.
Well, and before you move on to the weather though, everything that you just said, you can do in Las Vegas. You can kayak in Las Vegas. Now you might not come across the pod of orca.
Right.
You can hike in Las Vegas. It may not be at the same elevations with the same beauty and the same evergreen type of environment that you can in Seattle, right? And you can definitely snow ski in Las Vegas. But the quality of skiing, the quality of the powder, the elevation of the mountains are definitely not going to be the same as you can in Seattle. I'm sorry, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was definitely getting there. Appreciate the input. The Las Vegas's outdoor scene is more centered around rock climbing, hiking, and the lake and the river.
Yeah.
That's what our outdoor scene is centered around. And if you're into lake sports, if you're into water skiing or wakeboarding, If you're into, going down to the river and, taking your cooler full of beer and hanging out down at the houseboat. If you're into hiking Mount Charleston, or if you're into particularly rock climbing. Rock climbing is huge in Las Vegas. It's something not a lot of people know, but a lot of world famous rock climbers do live here. They train here year round because we have great rock climbing here in Las Vegas. But it is a very different outdoor scene because it's a very different outdoor setting, right? We're in the high desert, surrounded by lakes and mountains, as opposed to a city like Seattle that is on the coast, also surrounded by mountains, but very different mountains, right?
Much larger mountains.
They are much larger mountains. They get a lot more snow. And then, like I was saying earlier, if you're gonna talk about outdoor living and you're gonna compare Las Vegas and Seattle, you can't have that discussion and not talk about the weather.
Yeah, very true.
Obviously, Las Vegas is one of the cities in the United States that gets the most sunny days per year, every single year, because we're in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
Yeah.
Seattle is at the far other side of that spectrum and is one of the cities that gets the most cloudy days and one of the cities that gets the highest amount of precipitation year in and year out, right? And just depends on what you're looking for. For me, personally, I couldn't do it. It would drive me crazy. I can tell you from I lived in Hawaii for 6 years, and Hawaii gets quite a bit of rain, and not nearly as much as Seattle gets. And I would start going a little bit batty with the amount of rain I got there. So for me, love Seattle, phenomenal city to visit. I love going there to visit. I personally wouldn't want to live there because I could not handle that amount of rain and overcast days on a regular basis. If for no other reason, like take, say, the mental health component out of it and just talk about the things that I enjoy to do. My two main hobbies are riding motorcycles and playing golf. Both of those are much more pleasurable when the sun is shining. So for that reason and that reason alone, I personally prefer to live in the desert as opposed to living in the Pacific Northwest. But your mileage may vary. So what is it that you're looking for? If you're somebody who either A, doesn't mind if you're somebody who doesn't mind the rain and the overcast cloudy days that you're gonna get in Seattle, or if your hobbies don't revolve around the sun being shining and the sky being blue, Seattle might be the place for you, but you have to take that into consideration when you're deciding if you're gonna live somewhere like Las Vegas or Seattle. So,
all right.
Justin, any last thoughts?
Last thoughts. Very similar to you. I love Seattle. I think Seattle's a beautiful city. I've been there a couple of times and I've enjoyed both.
We didn't even talk about the food scene in Seattle, but it's fantastic.
It is. Seattle will always actually have I get a little personal with you guys. Seattle will actually always have a special place in my heart. That is where myself and my ex-wife sat down at a restaurant at Pike's Place, and we discussed the name of our daughter, and we came up and we named our daughter in that restaurant. I believe that was January 2nd, 2018.
I learned that with you guys. That's the first time I've ever heard that.
So Seattle will always have a very special place in my heart. I love it. I love the ocean. I love oceanic wildlife. Orcas fascinate me. Whale watching. Bainbridge Island, absolutely gorgeous place. I spent a lot of time there. Seattle is something very special to me. So maybe Mike and I have actually sold you on Seattle. And if it did, well, okay, great. Good thing is we know some great agents in the Seattle area. So if you're thinking about moving to Seattle, still reach out and give us a call. We can connect you with those agents. We'd love to help you facilitate that. But if you're even thinking about moving to Las Vegas next week, next month, next year, anytime in the future, or if you have more questions about our great city and our great state, we'd love to talk to you about it. Comment down below or give us a call. Our contact information is there. If you're not ready to talk to a realtor, but you would like to know how much you may qualify for as far as a mortgage, or if you have questions about mortgages, reach out to our lending partner, New American Funding, with either Steve or Linda. Their information will be below. Please like and subscribe and smash that notification bell so that way you'll know every time we release a new video. We want to keep putting out the best content we can for you. So if you have any suggestions for us, if you have another city you'd like us to talk about, I know we have Phoenix coming up. We have plans on San Jose, San Francisco, Orange County, and Los Angeles. But if there's something that we're not thinking and it's a little bit outside the box, please comment down below. We'd be more than happy to include that. Until next time, guys.
See you later.